There's another one as well, and he was made mention of course, a little bit earlier on. Health is one of those things that profoundly affects us. Education is one of those things that can break the cycle, and we know that educated people make very, very different choices about their health. But one of the cornerstones of health is having Aboriginal community-controlled health services in our midst that look after the needs of our people in the most unique, holistic and appropriate way. Uncle Darryl Wright is the CEO of the Thurrowool Aboriginal Medical Service over at Aids. He's an elder on campus and had very long association, of course, with this university. At UWS School of Medicine, he works diligently and extremely hard to ensure that not only the medical students are offered opportunities to work in a comprehensive Aboriginal community-controlled service, but also students of other health services as well within this university. Next year there are 300 students coming through here, and Darryl Wright is working diligently with his team out at Thurrowool to make sure they all have the best opportunity to be able to work appropriately with our people. Uncle Darryl, thank you. You know, we stand on the shoulders of giants, and I really am very, very honoured to be doing this job as MC. It's one of those things that you know, really makes us recognise that storytelling is so important, and for that we've got a teacher here who was the first graduate from the precursor to UWS in this land, Annie Mae Robinson. Would you mind coming up and sharing a little bit of your story, please?
I'll talk fast. I am a teacher. I am a teacher of my culture. I worked very hard to do it. But one of the things I need to introduce you to is Annie Mae was born at Moree, and I was born in Gamilaroi country, or some of them say Kamilaroi. However, I grew up in Kempsey on the north coast, and it's very important for me to acknowledge my elders. They were Dangari and they were Gumbanga, and they taught me. They taught me to be a teacher, and it was always around me. I have been teaching both in schools and in primary schools and also at universities. I'm the first Aboriginal person to graduate from a place called Milperra CAE, which is now the Bankstown campus of UWS. I was invited onto the council for Milperra CAE. I'd already been on the Milperra one, and it was at that time the government of the day decided that the CAEs had to be dissolved, that the colleges, that the higher education ones had to be dissolved. I was still on Milperra CAE. Sorry, I was still on the council for Milperra CAE. MacArthur Institute. I get myself all nervy, which is nothing that I'm used to. When we had a council meeting, by then Penrith was UWS, Hawkesbury was UWS, Campbelltown was UWS, but we were still waiting and finding out what our college was going to be. The Milperra, and I argued in relation to UWS. I did that because I was a consultant for Aboriginal education in Metropolitan Southwest. It was very important to me that the availability of a university in southwestern Sydney was important. So we maintained and we managed to keep Bankstown campus over there. The thing is that my thoughts and ideas at that time was to deal with. I was the consultant for Aboriginal education, then later on the consultant for disadvantaged schools, and then later on again for multicultural education. But the big one that stood out to me was the disadvantaged school. There were a lot of people who had the right to go to university, and they were ignored in relation to that. And we had the universities are all over the other side of the harbour. We didn't have that. I am very pleased to be on council with the UWS. As a senior Aboriginal education officer, I pushed for the Aboriginal education policy. The Aboriginal education policy is so important. It is one of those things in my life. I've been working with others to make it the agent of change. Like I say to my colleagues who are teachers, Captain Cook didn't discover Australia. My ancestors didn't lose it. And I will say that to just about every lecturer that I get a chance to say it to. One of the things that I need to mention, that I was one of those stolen generation, but mine was only a short, brief time. My mum was the stolen generation within my family. She was taken away when she was 5. But a very strong woman who brought up her family in a way to respect everyone. In a way, she actually joined the CWA. Would you believe that? Country Women's Association, to those people who do not know it. But within that program, she made, and I enjoyed it. I was a marching girl. There was a whole group of us Aboriginal girls became marching girls. I was in the Waratahs. I was a teenager, 14, something like that. And my little ones were called us Sunbeams. And look, we were flat as a pancake when it came to being marching girls, but that was something that was different to do, and I loved it. I was there when Kevin Rudd said, sorry. I think he's the best Prime Minister around to actually think that way. We still have Prime Ministers who say things that they really need to start thinking about. Hello, Auntie Pearl, I thought you had left. Because she and I were those consultants who were agents of change. We had to go into schools and turn around and change the professional way that teachers got taught in universities. That Aboriginal people weren't the first people of the land. And I believe that we need to keep pushing that arrow in Captain Cook didn't discover Australia. My ancestors didn't lose it. It is something that I have always said to my professional colleagues. We all have our knowledge. We all have our culture. And our culture is very important to everyone. And it doesn't matter if you're an Australian or wherever you come from. I am one of those people who gives it a fair go. And I like that. I would like to acknowledge present here today my husband of 52 years. And I say thank you for that, darling. He has to put up with me talking all the time, so I'm sorry about that, darling. That's true, darling. To this day, I have retired. I'm 70 plus, but I have retired. But I still go to schools. I still get invited to speak at conferences. It is something that I like doing, and it's something at the University of Western Sydney I am on the council for the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Education Council. There is no way that they really need to start thinking about when you're lecturing that we are people of the land. And I'm being a bit political, which is something that I'm not usually doing. Today I am an elder on campus at UWS. I am very proud of that. I thank Melissa for her vision in relation to getting the elders on campus. We are holders of knowledge. We are holders of knowledge of our culture, but we also have knowledge of participating in Australia. In 1967, there was a Prime Minister called Gough Whitlam, and he gave me the right to vote. He gave all of us the right to vote. He was the man of the people, and it didn't matter what culture you came from. And I was fortunate enough to meet him quite a few times. I have a fantastic photo of him walking with Auntie Nancy DeBreeze. She graduated as a welfare officer. I think it's more than that. Nursing as well, right. We launched a book for her at Milperra, and you won't believe it. She was in a wheelchair, and Gough Whitlam, when he finished launching the book, which I was there at the time, he just got hold of the wheelchair and said, "Rightio, Auntie Nance, we're going out to the car," and he drove her off. It's just one of those things in life that we all need to be aware of, that we Aboriginal people interact right across the board.
Graciousness of our gorgeous, beautiful elders, I want to share a little bit with you about Uncle Rex Sorby. His involvement came to UWS only fairly recently, about 5 or 6 years ago, when he was asked if he could offer some of his extensive experience to help resolve some issues that were happening locally. After that, he became an elder on campus simply because of his profound wisdom in dealing with that, and he's been here ever since. It's funny, when you come on and do something for volunteers, they won't let you go. Anyhow, it's a warning to you all. Anyhow, so UWS Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Employment Strategic Consultative Committee, he's also a member of. And one of the dreams that Uncle has got is that UWS will be the place of choice for all Aboriginal people who intend to do tertiary education in this state. And I think that is an absolutely fantastic dreaming for someone to have. UWS, as we know, is situated smack dab in the middle of the place where the majority of Aboriginal people live in this great country of ours. And education, he recognises, is one of the most crucial things in anyone's language now, and he recognises how it changes people's future forever. So come join with me, please, and thank Uncle Rex for his wonderful work. I mean, there's so much more we can say about everybody who's spoken here and everyone we've spoken about, but I'm also going to actually ask Uncle Steve Williams to come up and share with us. He was the beautiful man who facilitated the smoking ceremony for us as we came into this space, and he's got a very short story and a little bit of context around what's a smoking ceremony, why it's important and how he does it. Uncle Steve, would you mind joining us, please?
Hello everyone. Wow, it's a big story for me. I'd just like to say before that, thank you for the organisers, thank you Melissa for asking me along today and to be part of the Generations of Knowledge. I'm much younger than the other people, the elders and that. I'm sort of like an apprentice elder at the moment, so I'm going through my paces. But I can't help but think when my mother was going to primary school, and getting into trouble, getting the cane for speaking her language in school. So I can't go past that, thinking about that and the struggles coming down from a little place called, she was born on the banks of the Lachlan River, up on the Blacks camp there, and close to Yarramundi. You saw Yarramundi there, all those Williams there. I think I'm related to some of those. I'm related to Matilda. But coming down to the Big Smoke when she was 29 with 4 children in tow. And trying to instill in us pride. And 21 years ago, I was asked to be part of a dreaming stories from all over Australia, and coming off the railways and doing that, and being thrown in the deep end, and telling stories of the dreaming. Because I used to go around and there was a lot of racism, and there was a lot of, I used to cop a lot of it because of the colour of my skin, believe it or not, with all the people these days being so dark and that, and it's, even now it's being hard to be recognised, but I was asked to be part of that. And when you get a 10-year-old and you're walking down the street and he doesn't know you from a bar of soap, but he will call your names and that. It was very hurtful. I'm very pleased to be have gone through that. A lot of our people don't make it through all those sorts of things, and prejudice and those sorts of things. So I'd like to say a lot of positive things, which is very good today for me, making it. I think my mother and my father would be very proud of the fact that I was able to be talking here at the University of Western Sydney today. I also am part of the Stolen Generations Alliance. I'm the delegate for New South Wales. I'm part of the Gandagara Land Council out there at Liverpool. I go into schools, I do murals. Now, for the thing that I was asked to come up here and talk about, the smoking ceremony is sort of like a cleansing ceremony. It's people pass through that smoke. They might come with, say, bad spirits or a negative energy. I tell the school kids like negative energy, so that I understand it. But I think it's more these days when you have bad spirits, it's those things I was talking about, like lies and that, shock jocks, bad information about Aboriginal people, so that we're all on the same page. And I'd like the whole lot of Australia to be needs a big smoking sometimes. It's good to see that there are so many positive, there are so many different varying people out here. I do go to lots of different sorts of ceremonies with the schools and that, and it's good to see that we're moving along as it should, and recognising Aboriginal culture. So that's a cleansing ceremony coming through there, so that we get rid of all that negative and bad spirits, if you like, all that things that bring us down. So I think I'll stop there. I'm not a great speaker, so I'll just leave it there, and I'm more a performer and a fine arts person. So thank you.
I know we're a couple of minutes late, but we've got Uncle Harry Alley, who's going to get up and share a little bit of his story as one of our esteemed and cherished elders on campus. Uncle Harry.
Firstly, I'd like to thank you for giving me that look. That's your phone that's ringing. Would you please answer it, turn it off and put it away so it doesn't make another noise? I tell you, certainly when you're up here and see the eyes upon you, it's cured me. Look, firstly, I would like to acknowledge the presence of the very good university you have, and the people that sort of help make it the institution that it is, and people like Chancellor Professor Peter Shergold, Vice-Chancellor Professor Barney Glover, Deputy Vice-Chancellor Rhonda Hawkins, and Pro-Vice-Chancellor students Angelo Coutis. And certainly I'd like to make mention of Melissa Williams, the Director of Employment and Engagement, that keeps us elders on campus in place. Certainly to distinguished guests that are here, UWS staff, and certainly ladies and gentlemen. I would also like to give mention to Auntie Sandra for a welcome to country, and to respectfully acknowledge the Darug people, the traditional owners and custodians of the land of where I stand, and I pay my respects to our elders, both past and present, and especially to those elders who may be present here this afternoon. It has indeed been a pleasure for me to be invited to speak at today's Yarramundi Lecture, where UWS honours the distinct contributions that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have made and continue to make to contemporary culture. I would like you to join with me as I travel through time to talk about today's theme, the Bugle Call. The bugle is a simple instrument, yet it plays a very important role in the military. It is used over time to announce the start of the day and to announce its end. It also is used to announce a call to action. The bugle is the sound of leadership. The military knows a lot about leadership. It demands it. Without strong, honest leadership, there is no order, no cohesion, and no cooperation. Without leadership, there is no success. Failure does not lead leaders, just thoughtless followers. Leadership is not about strength of character, even though it needs it to endure. Leadership is not about commitment, even though it needs it to prevail. Leadership is not about discipline, even though it cannot exist without it. Leadership is first and foremost about knowing what is the right thing to do and having the courage and conviction of doing it, particularly when it is needed, regardless of the size of the obstacles or the strength of the opposition. Military history is full of examples of small outnumbered groups of men and women who have prevailed over much larger, stronger enemies, and they are quite rightly venerated for their courage. Such examples happen because in the military, leadership is not limited or confined to the senior ranks. It is encouraged and developed in every single member, because the qualities of good leadership are the qualities of all decent, honest human beings. It doesn't take a war or kind of military conflict to reveal these qualities. They are brought to fight in the most ordinary and unexpected ways in its circumstances and in the most modest of people. On December the 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks, a 42-year-old African-American woman who worked as a seamstress, boarded a bus in Montgomery City to go to work. And by doing this simple act, began a new era in the African-American people's quest for freedom and equality. She did it by simply refusing to obey the bus driver's demand to give up her seat in the coloured section to a white passenger when the white section was filled up. Her small, quite simple act of defiance became one of the most important symbols of the civil rights movement. Was Rosa Parks brave? Yes, she was. But what Rosa Parks was above everything else was a woman, a person who knew what was right and did it. Regardless of the opposition, she didn't choose to become an important figure. She didn't choose to be a leader, but what she did was profound, and the world united behind her. Not many people outside of the civil rights movement, or who are not students of its history, know Rosa Parks or have even heard of her. She was a woman of her time, and times have changed, but they changed with a little help from her. Aboriginal history, since the arrival of Europeans, has its fair share of Rosa Parks. We don't have to know them personally, we don't have to remember their names, but we must remember what they did and the changes that helped they have helped bring about. Because we want to nurture the leadership, the human values and the character that have shown in ourselves, in our children and our children's children. In the military, Aboriginal men and women have shown that character and those values and proven themselves to be equal in bravery and loyalty to every other serviceman and woman they fought alongside from the Boer War to Iraq. They did what they believed was the right thing, despite the obstacles of ridicule, racism and indifference. They were leaders by example, if not by rank, not just to other Aboriginals, but to all Australians. We can dwell on the fact that it has taken so long for their contribution to be recognised and the reason behind the delay, but that would only obscure their contribution. Better that we celebrate it as loudly as we can and drown out the errors of the past with our respect and happiness for them and ourselves. Through my own experience in the Air Force, as well as being appointed by the Chief of Air Force to be Elder of the Air Force, and also my being an ambassador for the New South Wales Centenary of Gallipoli Council, and also as chairman of the ceremony honouring Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander servicemen and women during Reconciliation Week. I know full well the wonderful contribution Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander men and people have made to serving country here and abroad. Their efforts are being recognised warmly, honestly and respectfully. But we must honour them in far more meaningful ways than simply at annual ceremonies and gatherings. We must honour them in the spirit of how we conduct our own lives, knowing what they did, what sacrifices they made, what examples they gave us, not as military men and women, but as decent human beings. The changes they brought about in the military are changes we have seen in the greater Australian community. Their personal history is our collective history. They are not separate or parallel lives, but joined together, indivisible from each other. They showed us how to better than our circumstances, our backgrounds, even our own shortcomings and biases. That is leadership of the most powerful kind, leadership that comes from within. The more universally understood forms of leadership, of course, are conferred on you. In the military, you can be recognised and given rank and command for valour, for strength of character, technical and strategic ability, and for people skills. With that, you are entrusted with the lives of the men and women under your command. In the Aboriginal community, you are chosen to be an elder for your contribution to the community, your personal qualities like honesty, justice and caring. You are given authority for your knowledge of the culture, oral history and language, and your ability to guide and teach strong, honest, caring leadership. Builds loyalty, respect and above all, cooperation and commitment to the common good. In the military, commanders don't always go into battle, even though many senior officers have given their lives for their men. Military leaders rely on their men to not just follow the orders, but to act appropriately on their own initiative, because war is unpredictable and doesn't play by rules. That requires inner leadership and personal accountability. And so it is in the community. Elders don't always go into battle, even though they often give of their time for their people. Elders rely on their people not to just follow orders, but to act appropriately of their own initiative, because life is unpredictable and doesn't play by any rules either. However, life requires even greater inner leadership and personal accountability than soldiers at war, because life lasts longer than any war ever will, and often our enemy is ourselves and people we know. That's why real heroism, real leadership starts in the family. It is our basic social unit and therefore is the building brick of our community. The family heads who go to work to show their children the importance of having a work ethic is leading by example. the family heads who encourages their children to go into higher education, even if they never had the chance, teaches them selflessness and loving support. The family heads who don't cheat on their tax return or insurance claim, teaches the importance of honesty. The family heads who take their own children to the authorities when the child has broken the law, teaches their families accountability and justice. In closing, I would like to add that, like the stand that Rosa Parks took, we as the First Nation people also do not need a commanding officer to tell us what needs to be done. Our communities and our people have been enriched through time by the passing and sharing of our culture, stories and heritage. It is through this sharing and caring for each other and also understanding the importance of what has been passed down to us through time, Rosa Parks listened to her heart and obeyed her conscience. But if we are to remain strong in our culture in the generations that will be following, then we too should be nurturing today our leaders of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Harry. Absolutely wise words. We've also had, in the last few days, a lot of veterans and service personnel gather just down the track, and I recognise that a number of those people are in this room, beautiful, brave men and women who have served and who continue to serve our country. So if we could just give them a round of applause and acknowledgement. Of course, there's many people to thank, and you know who they are. But I'd also like to thank you for coming and for taking on some of these stories and becoming part of the broader narrative that is the University of Western Sydney, and becoming part of the narrative that is the Yarramundi suite of lectures, which will now be a significant annual occurrence based on the nod that we got from the Vice-Chancellor when he was here. And I'd like to thank you all very, very much for coming. So let's a very big round of applause for all of the people who have made this happen, our guest speakers, our elders, our beautiful Indigenous dancers, our gifts to each other. Let the celebration continue. Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to finish up with just two dances. This first dance is about the crow, and we call it Crow Wharoo. This song and dance is significant to us. Traditionally, when our neighbouring clans would come together to pass on knowledge and share information like we are today. Buri manwa. Buri manwa gari garana tu ete mamilna rinna ingmalanga pala na jidai barani. Buri manwa gari gara, buri manwa gari gara, buri manwa, buri manwa, buri manwa. Buri manwa gari garana tu ete mamilna rinna ingmalanga pala na jidai barani. Buri manwa gari gara, buri manwa gari gara, buri manwa, buri manwa, buri manwa. Buri manwa gari garana tu ete mamilna rinna ingmalanga pala na jidai barani. Buri manwa gari gara, buri manwa gari gara, buri manwa, buri manwa, buri manwa. Thank you. This last one is about the rainbow serpent, and this dance is Nintikaloichu. And as he's travelling through the Nambar Nation, he's creating the rivers, the streams and the waterholes, and he's being chased by Machanka, the red-breast robin. A lot of our stories, they don't have endings, so he moves on to the neighbouring tribe of the Murrawari people, paying respects to people from other tribal areas. We do all of our songs and dances in 3 verses. The first verse, we're paying respects to God, Bayemi. The second verse, we're paying respects to Mother Earth, Ganithikun. And the third verse, we're paying respects to our ancestors who've passed on this knowledge and our culture to us. Nintikaloichu. Nintikaloichu kalaka walankaloi. Dunluku yuku yukana. Yawan yawana yakadintu. Dunluku yuku yukana. Dunluku yuku yukana. Dunluku yuku yukana. Nintikaloichu kalaka walankaloi. Dunluku yuku yukana. Yawan yawana yakadintu. Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting us. I'd like to introduce our dancers. From the youngest is my son Malian, Nambar Walwan. My daughter Kirilla, Nambar Walwan. We have Anthony, who's Wiradjuri. And on the Yadaki we have Norman, who's Murray. Pat on the head.